Welcome to Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I am Tim Capper. You can find me on Twitter at Repact. That's REPPACT.
And I'm Cliffy D. You can also find me on Twitter, but at Cliffy D. And this episode of the Alouettes Flightdeck podcast is presented by our good friends over at SportBuff, where right now you can save 10% off your entire order by using the promo code FlightDeck-10. Head on over to www.sportbuffshop.com for your purchasing needs.
Fantastic. They got some great new CFL stuff there too. Gonna go ahead and at least get it out of the way. Also, head over to our socials. Alouettes FL Deck Facebook page. Look up for Alouettes Flight Deck Pod. Guys, we are starting. Even though we have a bye week this week, we got to get ready for the next home game, Cliff. We are going to be starting the next round of the giveaway for the SportBuff Flight Crew seats. So head over to socials. Go ahead and join into the contest. It's free. Again, I'll say it. It's free.
Free is good.
That's right. And you can win a pair of tickets to see the Alouettes play. The Edmonton Eskimos and also the Edmonton Elks. Wow, take a shot. Edmonton Elks. And also they're to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the 2002 Grey Cup champions. I think the Grey Cup will be in town and a whole bunch of players and stuff like that. So, hey, your chance to win free tickets. Okay.
Who doesn't like free?
Yeah. So,
and also too, before you go, we do have some other socials to talk about. Let's not forget the Alouettes Flight Deck is on Instagram at Alouettes Flight Deck, and don't forget, folks, we are on YouTube. Please do a search for Alouettes Flight Deck on YouTube. You'll find a lot of our shows there. And once again, folks, please smash that subscribe button. Tell your friends, tell your family members, let everybody know to go and subscribe, because we still have that jacket we want to give away to you all. So once we get to that century mark, 100 plus people, we'll be giving away a beautiful satin retro jacket. So head over to YouTube, look for Alouettes Flight Deck, and please subscribe. Don't just like it, but subscribe, because we want to give that jacket away.
That's true. We're almost there. You guys can get us there. Okay, yes, we have the game to talk about where the Alouettes get shellacked, and it's funny, it's almost the exact same score that it was from our last home game. But, as it seems usually when it comes to a bye week and a team that isn't necessarily doing all that well, things be a change in town. You kind of called it, and it's what we're going to be talking about first for the first segment, because it deserves our full attention, because we have a new head coach, and we have a new DC. A new defensive coordinator.
Yep. Unfortunately, sometimes I hate being right, but I mean, it was clear as day what was going to happen. Kahari Jones was very much on the hot seat even before the season got started. And as the Alouettes dropped close games, and unfortunately this past Saturday's blowout against the Saskatchewan Roughriders, that pretty much sealed his fate, unfortunately. And he's been relieved of his coaching duties effective immediately. The one that kind of surprised me, though, and maybe it shouldn't have, but Baron Miles was also shown the door, our defensive coordinator, who we had on the show earlier this year. And again, it's kind of surprising in the sense that the defense was not the problem. The defense is not the reason why the Alouettes are 1-3 right now, and solely in second place of the CFL Eastern Division, I might say. But yeah, you finally got it, didn't you? Yeah, the CFL East. The East is terrible this year, folks. Up, down, top to bottom. I don't care which team it is.
At the moment.
All four teams.
At the moment.
At the moment, yes. But right now, all four teams don't deserve to be even considered in playoff contention. Yet, if the playoffs were to start tomorrow, the Alouettes would be hosting a playoff game. Oh, boy. And they'd be hosting the Calgary Stampeders, if you can believe that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, stupid crossover.
Oh, yeah. But it's so funny, too, because I said, don't be surprised this year, folks, if maybe, just maybe, one of the Eastern teams crosses over. What a joke. Oh, boy. I mean, I didn't say it was going to happen. I just said don't be surprised. But right now, I would be so surprised to see it happen.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I know it's still young, folks. I know it's still, we're really only 4 games into the season. But, oh, man, it's not, if you're a fan of Ottawa, Hamilton, Toronto, or Montreal, things are not looking great. They're really not.
No. And I will admit, when it came to this, I guess I was in a little bit of in denial. My thought is that, going into the season, I thought the Owls had a very good chance to right out the bat to do really, really well. But game one, we lose 3 major players. And since then, we've been in games, we've been in all of our games except for just one. It's just, again, I already said, I don't think I said it on air, but I said that if there was going to be a change, I did not want it to be Maciocia as head coach. I thought it was going to be Baron Miles. Well, both those stones got thrown out as soon as Baron Miles was fired also.
And let's not forget, the pieces were in place for Maciocia to come in as head coach. It's clear as day when you look at the hires that were done in the offseason. Byron Archambault as special teams coordinator, even though, yes, technically Jeff Reinbold was hired, but then for reasons, he left, and now Byron Archambault is special teams coordinator, a former Montreal Carabin coach, special teams coordinator there. Anthony Calvillo brought in as quarterback coach, also a former Carabin coach.
It's true.
Former equipment manager of the Carabin, who's also now a defensive quality control assistant, if I'm not mistaken. So, with the hiring now of Noel Thorpe as defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach, replacing Miles, another, wait for it, former Carabin's coach.
Yep.
This was really, truly Danny getting the band back together. Mm-hmm. Because, as you know, Danny Maciocia was the essentially head coach and general manager, if you will, of the Montreal Carabin.
True.
He was the one who did the recruiting. He was the one who had basically assembled that team. And yes, definitely created a powerhouse within the U Sports, and again, a team that was always going to be competitive year in and year out. I'll give Danny his props. He definitely created an incredible winning atmosphere for the Montreal Carabin. And I guess the thought was, well, I can recreate that with the Montreal Alouettes. I'll bring in a lot of former Carabin players. I will draft them or I will sign them. And now, when it comes to coaches, I will draft them and I will sign them. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much what it was. He's just basically trying to reassemble the Montreal Carabin, take all the best parts of the Carabin, the successful parts, and bring them to the Alouettes. And who better to lead the Caraboulettes, I guess we'll call them, than Danny Mac himself. That's
the Alabans.
Really what it comes down to, folks.
The Alabans.
The Alabans?
Yes. Yes. I think, and it's funny. I was looking at. I totally forgot about Noel Thorpe. I really had, and I mentioned this to you off air that I think that this change was probably put off a week, or it made it so that it was going to occur this week. It wasn't going to occur last week because Noel Thorpe was originally in the USFL and he was coaching in the a coach for the Birmingham Stallions in the USFL Spring League in their championship game. Mm-hmm. So this could have gone last week, but after a win, I don't know. But we've seen coaches fired in this for the Owls after a win. So I don't know.
I said though that at the way that everybody was talking with all the noise, and it was difficult to ignore. There was a lot of talking heads that had speculated and probably even had inside knowledge saying that, listen, unless Kahari goes 18-0, the first chance they get, they're going to get rid of him. And sure enough, they waited at least to the bye week. But
they had one of 3 to do it. I guess they wanted to go with the first one.
Yeah, no, and again, this Alouettes team, a couple bounces here and there, and this is a 3-1 football team.
Yes,
and they still may have gotten rid of him. That's just
it's true. It's true.
Like I said, it would have had to been 18-0 and blowouts every game.
Yeah,
maybe then Kahari could have kept his job, but no. Instead, he takes the brunt of the blame for it. The fact that the Alouettes were so undisciplined against Saskatchewan, and they've been the discipline issues for quite some time now, even dating back to last year. A lot of it was on special teams, so that's why Mickey Donovan was showing the door, and he got the blame for that. But a lot of Kahari's hires too were also shown the door. Most notably, Coach Robert Gordon, his basically Kahari's right-hand man, was let go this year, earlier this year. So, the writing was on the wall, quite frankly. I mean, like, and I think Kahari knew this too. Unfortunately, you never know it, just how he carried himself, because he's always been a man that has been gracious, and he will never be negative. He's just a good, hardworking, honest person who tries to see the positive in everything. And you can tell that he cares so much about his players, and that's what helped make him an excellent coach. But at the same time, could they have needed a disciplinarian? And maybe Kahari wasn't doing that. Is that one of the reasons why? It's hard to say, but I really do think that, like, once it was really just going to be a matter of time before Danny Mac inserted himself as head coach. He just needed a good excuse. And I guess the Alouettes being 1-3, even though it was very close to being 3-1,
yeah,
as well as the lack of discipline, and
two of the 4 games has been horrible. And then what happened last week with the first Alouettes player being ejected with the new CFL ejection rule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it was just that's the thing. Like the third quarter against Saskatchewan, like that's pretty much where things really truly fell apart. I mean, the Alouettes were actually leading going into halftime,
yeah,
and again, still very uninspired offense for the most part, you know. But it really just came down to, like, things just really fell apart. Like the offense was, I couldn't even say it was sputtering; it had sputtered in past tense, but the discipline of the defense was just unraveling. And I wonder if that could have been Barron's, the signing of his death warrant. But
it could. I mean, yeah, Michael Wayfield being ejected, the whole thing with Trey Watson, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Now,
Darius Williams getting fined as well.
Yeah.
I mean, like, free Darius, because we like him, and he deserves better than that. But
okay. Now, it's funny with head coaching changes. I expected to be more upset than I am. I'm upset because I really think that this was done at the wrong time. I really do.
I agree with you. And it's easy to say now, hindsight being 2020, but if you were going to get rid of Kahari, then you should have gotten rid of him before training camp.
Yeah, don't disrupt the season.
Yeah.
Which it has been. And as
it still would have been throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because that's what I had said, was that, like, Kahari, I didn't want to believe Kahari was the problem. I don't entirely believe Kahari was the problem. I just think that the pieces were put in place. He was set up to fail, simply put. And as I said, there was just no plausible scenario other than going 18-0 where he would have been able to keep his job beyond this year. And let's not forget, too, this is the last year of his contract extension.
True. That
he signed back in 2019.
But they're still on the hook. That's the thing. Another thing I was going to bring up is, and we'll talk about that. They're still on the hook for the salaries.
Sure.
So
that's.
But continue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that was so much a concern as it was when, say, for example, they were on the hook for Dan Hawkins' salary and Tom Higgins' salary back when those guys were turfed unexpectedly. Well, quicker than usual. But that's the thing. Like, signing a long-term extension to a head coach in any sport is always a bit of a tricky thing. But, I mean, if anyone deserved a 3-year extension when he signed it, it was Kahari Jones for what he did in 2019.
Damn straight.
He proved his worth. And honestly, even last year, yeah, things were not perfect, but I mean, like, he was still winning games. I still believe the players believed him for the most part, but let's not forget that was also Maciocia coming in, as it was his first year effectively as general manager, like, with actual football being played. And you can just start to see, like, little signs that maybe, confidence isn't there. And as I said, Kahari was able to power through it. He was able to, still turn in a decent performance, still got the Alouettes to the playoffs, but nothing. Would a Grey Cup have changed that? Maybe. But as I said, as things changed, as the offseason from 2021 to 2022 progressed, it was becoming a lot more clear that maybe Kahari's message wasn't ringing through, at least with the higher ups in the administration. Maybe specifically with the general manager, who I never entirely got the feeling that maybe he was content just to be an office guy, like, to sit in the office and make football decisions. Like, I think he kind of missed coaching. And let's not forget, his Twitter handle is DMacCoach. I mean, not DMacGM. So I think that drive, that itch to be on the sidelines, I think that may have been it. And I think it really just truly came down to, okay, the minute Kahari starts to falter, that's going to be my time. And just with all the moves that have been made, personnel wise, and all that, like just bringing in his guys, so to speak. Here we are. This is the sum of all the parts.
Right. I mean, to me, there are so many variables. One, I hate, and it seems to be the consensus from what we've seen, from many CFL fans that we've spoken with, is that a lot of people do not like the GM head coach combination.
Well, it only works. There's only another place where a coach and GM are the one and the same, and that would be Chris Jones in Edmonton. And how's he doing right now?
Yeah,
I believe he's 1-3, like the Alouettes.
Yeah, and it just seems that at least in Alouettes history, Cliff, that they don't do very well. We've had 8 general managers do this in team history, become GM head coach.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't do. We have two of these guys. Our first head coach GM, Lou Heyman, back in '46, and Marv Levy. Those are the only 2 to have a winning record as being a head coach and a GM.
Yeah, in our generation, which is essentially from 1996 to today, whenever the general manager takes over as head coach, it typically doesn't go very well.
Cavis went 0-7. It's 0-7 in 2017.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Pop did reach a Grey Cup in 2006, did not win it. But at that point, though, I think the team was still kind of running off the fumes of Don Matthews, who stepped away from a quote-unquote health scare. But I'm just wondering, too, if, again, it's all speculation at this point, and it's not like, again, we debate this, but at the end of the day, history has proven that when the general manager of the Montreal Alouettes decides he wants to be the head coach too, it doesn't always go well. Now, if Danny Maciocia could change that, great, more power to him.
Sure.
But I mean, history just doesn't paint the prettiest of pictures, and that's what I'm concerned about more than anything else. And
this is obviously with Gary Stern, he's an new owner, wants to get to the Grey Cup, wants to put the Alouettes back on the CFL map. Doesn't look good either because, only 3 GM head coaches have been to the Grey Cup. Heyman again, Levy again, and Pop, as he mentioned earlier. And only 2 of those 3 have won the Grey Cup.
Yeah. So, I mean, those odds make things a little bit better, but, I mean, it's a lot of pressure. And it's a lot to ask of any one individual. And I've said it. Like, I really have come around as far as Danny Maciocia as general manager. I think this year he's proven his worth. He's made some very solid moves.
He has. I will give him 100% props on that. I will.
Yeah, he drafted well. His free agency signings, very decent. We're seeing a lot of it right there. Like the moves that he made in 2021 and 2022 so far have worked out pretty well. I want to make it clear, free agency signings.
Yeah.
Not trades. Trades, the jury's still out on that one. But again, that's neither here nor there. So as far as general manager goes, yes, I can definitely say that Danny Maciocia has done a very solid job. But now he's going to add on the stress of head coach. I mean, I sincerely hope for his sake he has truly thought this through. I don't necessarily want him to fail. I really don't. But I know it's like, as we've discussed just now, history has not been very kind to those who have tried to double dip. And I just don't know. Like, does he have the magic? Does he have that magic formula that Lou Heyman and Marv Levy had? For his sake, I hope so, because again, I look back at the Cavis Reed head coaching era for the Alouettes. Not great.
No.
Jim Pop had some success, but had a lot of non-success as well as head coach. Phenomenal general manager, but when it came to the head coaching, sometimes you're better just doing one or the other, but not both.
I agree. And, this is a team that, we've had so much instability and so many losses over the past, I'll say 7 years. Did so well in 19. We seem to be turning the corner. Obviously, COVID came. We weren't able to replicate it in 2021. But, dude, we got to stop. If you want some sort of stability, you've got to stop with these and this goes back to what we were saying before. You got to stop these in-season changes. I mean, we've had 5 in-season changes of head coaches, Cliff, since 2013. What does that say? How can you gain stability? the GMs stay the same. Head coaches don't.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, you can sign as many free agents as you can, but if your head coaches if you don't have stability when it comes to your head coach,
that's the thing. You got to choose wisely.
It's just.
And I just have a hard time believing that Danny Mac is thinking of this as a short-term fix. Like he'll run the shit. He'll do both until the end of the season. Then he'll get a chance to bring in his own head coach,
which is exactly what I was going to say. That's what the press release says. Danny Maciocia is, according to the press release, will be the head coach until the end of the season. As Owls fans, we've heard this before, a la Jim Pop, and he still stayed head coach. But I'm going to ask the question, Cliff. In your opinion, does Danny Mac stay GM head coach despite the results in 2023, or does he actually elevate somebody, whether it be on Noel Thorpe, which, as you and I remember from years ago, a lot of people, I think you and I talked about it too, that we felt that at the time, he was a worthy candidate to be a head coach of the Alouettes, and never was because somebody else was always elevated above him.
Yep.
Which I think led to him leaving, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think he will make that change at the head seat? Do you think this is just a short-term thing for Danny Mac?
All depends. It depends how the Alouettes do this year. I mean, if they go on a run, even in a weak Eastern Division, get in the playoffs and just catch fire and win the whole damn thing.
I mean, sure, yeah, we can win 14 in a row, sure.
I mean, but that's it. If that happens, then obviously people are going to be like, no. This is why this is the move that should have been made a long time ago. Like that would be the narrative. And if the Alouettes don't win another game in 2022, then at that point, can you honestly say, okay, well, listen, we gave you a chance. You didn't turn things around. You didn't make things better. If anything, you made them worse, especially if you do never win another game. Then, yeah, at that point, okay, fine. You're the general manager. Bring in your guy, whoever you think will be the best fit as head coach.
Right.
So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy when you think about it. I mean, at what point do Alouettes fans want? We want success. We want this team to be a winning organization, but at what cost? And if you want that stability, you want that reassurance of who the head coach is going to be year after year after year, then this is what we got to figure out. And again, we won't know this until we start seeing Maciocia on the sidelines and actually coaching. Will the players respond to him? Will they step up for him like they did for Kahari? Because let's not forget, Kahari was thrown into the head coaching role 6 days before the regular season in 2019. And the players rallied behind him. They got behind him. They believed in him. And look what happened. Are they going to do that for Danny Maciocia? I mean, he's the boss. I mean, he's the general manager, and he signed most of these guys. So I'd be surprised if they didn't, try to do everything they can for him. But at the same time, like, is he going to be the one that's going to deliver the message? Is he the one that's going to? Is he the answer? I guess is what we're looking for here, because it wasn't Kahari apparently, so that's why he's been shown the door. So now, if Danny's not the answer, and he again, if Gary Stern wants to have that promise of the Alouettes being the Grey Cup champions, Danny Mac's going to have to perform. Like automatically now, the pressure is on big time, and can he do it? That only time's going to tell. But it's a big ask. Let's put it that way. It's a very big ask to do both. It's not out of a need, because quite frankly, Kahari Jones was a very good head coach. He may have lost some of the players. He obviously lost the faith of the organization. Yeah, but it's very weird. And like I said, I just don't know how to quite process it all. I don't know how to answer it. And I guess I'm just like, well, okay, this was the move you wanted to make. You've made it. Now you better follow through. Yeah, and you better deliver. That's really what it comes down to, is you better deliver, because no one is going to accept losing football. I don't care who the hell you are. Losing football is not going to sell tickets. No. I was talking with some people. We were talking about, we don't know what the locker room current situation is. We're always told that it's never exactly what people hear in the media. It's never as bad and it's never as good as what you hear. Right, but when the quotes that we heard today about
potentially how this locker room has changed since 2019. I heard these quotes and I was just stunned. But it maybe everything wasn't unicorns and rainbows. I mean, we were already going through, changes in, the changes in running back, the cluster that is the starting quarterback situation. I think there's more than one ship that Danny needs to right in the locker room. But has he? I mean, I think in my opinion, I think he's already started to make his changes to put his mark of the players that he wants. Obviously, it's going to happen now because he's the head coach and he wants to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not saying that we don't want it. We want Danny to succeed. But we're just going back to stability again. And it's just so frustrating because obviously revisionist history or what if, Marvel made their series about what if. We could easily do an Alouettes what if. What if we didn't lose Greg Reed? What if we didn't lose William Stanback in game 1? What if? But as I mentioned, what ifs don't keep your job. It's what have you done for me now?
It really is. You are what your record says you are, and what have you done for me lately? Those are the mantras when it comes to professional sports, including football. I mean, you are only as good as your last game, and quite frankly, the Alouettes' last game was not good at all. Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate that that's really, truly what essentially sealed Kahari's fate more than anything else was just an overall poor effort. And he's got to wear some of that, unfortunately. Baron Miles has to wear it. I'd say all of the coaches have to wear it, really, truly, when it comes to player discipline. Players obviously are responsible for their behavior. There's no question about that. I mean, you win as a team and you lose as a team.
Yes.
And this losing really was a team effort. You can't just point at one particular player or one coach and say, you're the reason why we got our asses handed to us by Saskatchewan. You can't.
No.
It really, truly was a losing effort on all sides. And unfortunately, that really is what's going to come. Unfortunately, I think that's what's going to be kind of the one thing that people are going to remember more than anything else when it comes to Kahari's Alouettes legacy for 2022. Not his overall legacy, because I think 2019 showed what he can do as a head coach.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we knew what he could do as a coordinator. And a lot of people felt it was just a matter of time before he became a head coach. Sure enough, even though he was thrown into the fire, he rose up to the challenge and did a fantastic job and deserved, as far as I was concerned, every benefit of the doubt. But then we start tinkering with things, when things start happening behind the scenes, and I think that's really what it came down to was Kahari's not Danny's guy.
Yeah.
Never really was Danny's guy. We kind of know this now.
We know that, and we understand. Yes, he was brought in after and Kahari stayed on. But
yeah, which again is a tough situation too. Like, to have a head coach and then have the general manager there, like, you kind of gotta play nice, like, with your new toys. But that was just the situation right now. Because let's face it, in 2019, the Alouettes had no general manager. They had no owner. They had all they had was Kahari as the sort of the face of the franchise. So, like, how do you get rid of this guy, especially after the amazing season he had? But also, too, like, when you hire a general manager and a president and new ownership comes in, like, they want to put their people in place. That's normal. Problem is, you were kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like, okay, well, we want to bring on our own people, but at the same time, how do you get rid of this guy who, just turned this thing around, essentially?
Yeah.
Who made the Alouettes part of the conversation again after years of ineptitude and just overall general malaise. This is the guy that basically started the fire that got the Alouettes hot again. You can't just throw him out. So you gotta work with him. And they tried it, and like I said, with so many things that were changing with personnel and bringing in certain players and basically forcing Kahari to work with certain types that just, like, he didn't have the say that he used to. Like, let's not forget, Kahari Jones was sort of the de facto general manager of the team as well, along with Joe Mack in 2019.
Yeah.
So he had a lot of say in personnel as far as who to bring in and who to keep and so on and so forth. Now you got a boss that's pretty much telling you, no, you know what? I want to sign this guy. I'm going to sign this guy. And here's your new starting quarterback because Vernon Adams got hurt, and make it work. Even if it's not the same kind of quarterback, make it work. And couldn't make it work. I mean, some of that's got to fall on Trevor Harris and some of that's got to fall on Kahari Jones because he too, a former quarterback, so he knows what it takes to win in this league. He should be able to have imparted some of that wisdom onto Trevor, wouldn't you say? I'm sure that's what a lot of people were thinking. And I'm sure a lot of people would think, that's not such a weird demand. But again,
what's your first of all, what's your thought on the potential issues with the coach's salary cap? Because obviously they're on the line for Kahari's salary. They're on the line for the rest of Baron Miles' salary. They bring in a new coach.
Yes.
To me, it's being the Owls being on the hook for the rest of these salaries.
Mm-hmm.
When, as I said before, they could have just done something at the beginning of the year and not had to worry about it. No, they probably would know. Contracts probably would have paid it.
Well, that's it. As I said, the one saving grace, if you will, and why a move would have had to have been made is the fact that this was Kahari's last year, and I'm pretty sure it was Baron's last year as well. So, a move would have had to be made one way or another at the end of the season. So, I guess now they have to eat that salary, and I guess with Danny Mac pulling double duty, you save money there. Yeah, and I have no idea how much they're going to pay. I don't have no idea how much they're going to pay Noel Thorpe.
Yeah,
but
that's true. Okay.
So, I guess in that sense, it's probably, I don't want to say necessarily a cost-cutting move, but this sort of offsets any sort of potential problems that you have when it comes to the coach's salary cap. But yeah, that's just what it boils down to is, Kahari was probably going to go anyways, but, why not do it before the season? If it really was a cost cut, it couldn't have been a cost-cutting measure if you're still willing to make this move. But I think realistically, this was the move that would have had to been made. You would have had to go internal no matter what. If you were going to replace Kahari, you would have had to go internal no matter what. And ultimately, it came down to, let the GM do it.
Yeah. Obviously, there's been a huge swell on the media, social media. Obviously, I'm sure, this is something that Danny Mac, I'm sure, doesn't really care about because he did what he felt, or he was able to, whoever just made the decision, whether it was a combination of Danny Mac and Gary Stern, obviously because Gary Stern is the one paying the bills. Because we've seen the reaction online on others within and outside of Quebec of this change. So not only English Canada, but also French Quebec has shown their displeasure for what has occurred.
Mm-hmm.
How, obviously, yes, he's our head coach. We can dislike a player and still support him. We can dislike a coach and still support him. And I'm not saying we dislike Danny Mac, but I'm saying in general, we still want this team to survive and to do well. What do you think the reception's going to be for Danny Mac overall when it comes to the state of football in Montreal? Obviously, there was a huge plus, obviously, with his football background, not only in the pros, but obviously how well he did over at UDM. Obviously, it's not only he's done it very well, and he's also a Quebecer. Overall, in your opinion, Cliff, how do you think football fans in Montreal, are going to take to being with Danny Mac being now our head coach?
I think a lot of fans are going to be very happy because they do revere Danny as again, I've called him the Nick Saban of U Sports.
He was.
And there's a lot of comparisons to that because Nick Saban, a very successful college football head coach, not so successful in the NFL. Danny Mac, not so successful in the CFL at first, very successful in U Sports. And now he's getting basically his second chance to be the man again when it comes to head coach in the Canadian Football League. Only time's going to tell how that's going to work out. I think a lot of Quebec fans are both very happy and very disappointed because, again, a lot of fans here in Montreal really did love Kahari as head coach. Mm-hmm. Again, it cannot be overstated just what Kahari did in 2019 to revitalize this franchise. It was dying on the vine, really, when you think about it. Like all the nonsense that was going on, basically from 2013 to 2019, with the exception of 2014, the second half of 2014 being pretty decent, pretty exciting. So let's even go 2015 to 2019. Things were it was a downward spiral, and when it hit rock bottom, it was bad. And just when you think things couldn't get any lower, they still somehow found a way to hit another level down. It was incredible. Like just how bad things were from 2015 to 2019, how bad things were.
Yeah.
And for Kahari to take over the way he did and do exactly what he did, he basically revitalized the Alouettes. He turned Vernon Adams into the superstar we expected him to be. This team was just so much fun to watch, game in, game out. Win or lose, you knew when you tuned in to watch the Montreal Alouettes play in 2019, they were must-see TV. They were the team you had to sit down and watch play, regardless of who the opponent was. And you were starting to see that again in 2021. But towards the end, that's when things kind of fell apart. And that's when
injuries killed this team.
It completely changed the dynamic, and as best as he could, he tried to work with the pieces he was given, and it didn't work. That luster was gone. That fire, that excitement that was there just wasn't quite. I mean, and now here we are in 2022, and we're kind of now we're kind of back to a change yet again. Once again, that instability has reared its ugly head. So it's tough. It's tough to imagine. Obviously, I think fans, when they look back, they're going to appreciate what Kahari Jones did for this organization. I mean, I still say he's a fantastic coach, and it's just a matter of time before someone else snaps him up. I'm sure. Next year, he's going to have his choice of suitors. Like someone is going to want to bring him in, if not as a head coach, then at least as offensive coordinator. And they're going to get a phenomenal coach. There is no question about that. Same thing with Baron Miles. Going to get a phenomenal coach, a phenomenal defensive coordinator. And he too may even be considered for a head coach, just for the way that, for both of these men, how the players reacted and believed in what these men had to say. I think the message was still getting across to the players. I just think that there was a lot of extenuating circumstances that just led to both of these guys being shown the door. And that's just the way it is in football, unfortunately.
And now it's funny. And now instead of Danny Mac and Gary Stern looking over the shoulder of Kahari, it's eliminated the middleman, kind of. It's now Gary Stern, I'm sure, watching with a very keen eye on how well Danny Mac does as head coach.
Yep, because the one thing that Gary Stern has established is he does not like being made a fool of. He doesn't like looking weak. He believes very much in this football team.
He does.
And he doesn't want to have that faith shattered. And if this team doesn't win and win often and stay competitive by and large, even in a weakened Eastern Division, that's a lot to answer for.
Yeah. So
at what point, like, I'm pretty sure that Danny Maciocia is going to have a very long leash to work with, but leashes do reach their end at some point. I'm just curious at how much of a leash is Danny Maciocia really going to be given, despite the fact that he is a Quebec-born coach and general manager, despite the fact that he is fluently bilingual and will do everything he can to help promote the game within Quebec itself, just like any of the Alouettes would be willing to do. But I know for a fact Gary Stern wants a winner. He didn't buy this team to watch them lose year after year after year.
Right.
He wants success, and he wants it now. So as far as I'm concerned, this Alouettes team is still a very good team on paper and on the field. They just got to get their act together.
Yep.
And stop beating themselves.
Yep.
And hopefully, with Danny Mac on the sidelines running things, they can do that. And if they can do it, great. More power to them. Then maybe that was the missing ingredient, the key to help get the Alouettes back to where they're supposed to be. If you do that, great. If not, then he's got a lot to answer for, because, okay.
Yeah.
You better find, if you're not the winning coach, if you're not the missing ingredient, you better hope to hell you know who you want to bring in as head coach, who can be that guy, who can be the one that lights the fire again for the Alouettes.
Yeah, because just based as I don't think I'm beating a dead horse with this by saying it again. Fans are going to be watching you now, Danny. Because if you know anything about the history of the Alouettes, or even if you've just been following the team since '96, you know how poor the idea is and how poor record-wise head coach GMs are for this team, and how very little success they've had. So it's not just Gary watching Danny Mac now; it's everybody who knows football in Montreal. We want you to win, Danny. We want you to win. Make us proud of the change you made. Prove the change was the right thing to do. We'll find out in 14, 15. Oh, hey, let's hope it's 16 weeks. We'll find out, right, Cliff?
Hey, listen, if we're going to be playing football in November, late November, out in Regina, then it was all worth it. But you got to get there first.
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to get there is you got to win football games. And there's no excuses, quite frankly. I mean, like, you wanted to put your people in place. You were given the opportunity to do so. You want to make yourself the kingmaker? Okay, you are now. So you better make it happen. And I hope you have chosen wisely when it comes to the people you want on the field, when it comes to the players at your disposal. I hope you've chosen wisely. I hope you have that missing ingredient that the Alouettes didn't have these first 4 games this season.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll leave it at that. We'll preview the first game of the Danny Maciocia head coach era next week, as we are on a bye week this week.
And it's so interesting that he's taking on his former franchise, if you will, in the Edmonton Elks.
Yes.
Not to mention his favorite trading partner, because let's face it, the Alouettes and Elks have made several transactions. A lot of players have gone back and forth with both Edmonton and Montreal over the past year and a half now, at least.
Yep. So, again, we'll preview that game next week's show. A reminder, any of the previous episodes of the Flight Deck can be found over at alouettesflightdeck.ca, including our chats with former head coach Khari Jones and our chat with former defensive coordinator Baron Miles, plus many, many more. We have to talk about the game because obviously this is what led up to what occurred today. And it's funny to say we thank the football gods for dropping this today.
That's true. We've been very fortunate this year. Like, when major news drops, it's before we hit the record button. Yeah. Let's not forget the CFL ratifying, or at that time temporarily ratifying.
That's true. Yeah.
Or coming to an agreement, I should say, for their work stoppage with the Players Association.
Yeah,
that happened just actually as we were recording, so we were able to pivot, shall we say,
so to speak. I agree.
So I think we've been very fortunate. Like, we were at least given this news now, as opposed to recording, say, yesterday, and everything we talk about just being trashed.
We feel for the other media that tapes once a week, has their shows once a week, and it did happen a few times. But Als gets shellacked 41-20 in the return game of the home and home, or the back-to-back versus Saskatchewan Roughriders, getting outscored. What did it was getting outscored in the third quarter, 21-0, which included the Alouettes holding the ball in that quarter, Cliff, for a grand total of 4 minutes and 8 seconds, and I think it was 8 offensive plays, not including punts, but 8 offensive plays. This is after the Alouettes were leading at halftime by 2, and we're playing quite well.
Well, that's generous. I mean,
okay,
let's
they were
be honest.
playing well enough to be leading. How about that?
Fine, we can do that. But once again, though, that first quarter was very reminiscent of a home opener in many ways. Yeah. Most notably, Chandler Worthy with another house call.
Yep,
absolutely outstanding.
Yep, it's only the second returner to do it in back-to-back games in CFL history. First ever player, obviously, to do it in Montreal Alouettes history. And the last player to do it was in 1956, I think. I think it was 1956 when it occurred. And it was a former Edmonton Eskimos player that did it. But yeah, it started off well. It really did. It was,
well, and again, once again, it was special teams scoring points. Really, when you think about it, that's 2 David Cote field goals and Chandler Worthy's house call,
and that's the issue that we're leading to.
Yeah.
By the way, it's hard to believe that we were beaten by so much. And did you know the time of possession? The Alouettes actually led in time of possession by 5 seconds.
I can believe that.
That's crazy.
Unfortunately,
the other problem too is, besides not scoring in the red zone, which seems to be an issue with our quarterbacks as of late, is once again an Jekyll and Hyde when it comes to penalties. They did have less than Saskatchewan, but they still had 11 penalties for 105 yards, which also included the first ever ejection for an Alouette by the new what are the penalties?
Basically 2 strikes and you're out, like 2 objectionable conduct or penalties.
One was dumb.
They were both dumb.
Get ejected was dumb.
Both of his penalties were dumb.
Yes.
Both of Wakefield's penalties were dumb. And you know what? The referee is always going to get the second guy. You should know this by now. That is practically football 101. If you're going to start something, start it. Don't continue it, because
was it also the actual crew that was there too? If Herb Zurkowski can mention it on social media before the game, everybody knows once we hear that name is like, oh crap.
This guy could ruin a wet dream, quite frankly.
Yes.
You know what's funny? I see people talk shit about Andre Proulx, and I'm sitting there like, Al Bradbury is the referee you think Andre Proulx is. I'm sorry to say, but, like this slander, why? Because Andre Proulx is French and, he speaks with an accent and all this nonsense. So what?
I love the way he says 3. I love the way he says 3.
You like turn down?
And I'm not being sarcastic, by the way. I love the way he says 3.
No. And you know what? Listen, at the end of the day, he's a fantastic referee. Al Bradbury is not a fantastic referee.
Yeah, it's funny. Al Bradbury is worse than a lot of the Major League Baseball umpires this year, because there's been a huge uproar at how bad calls are being made by umps in Major League Baseball. So that's where I put him.
Well, there you go. But it's funny. It is universal, whether it's media, whether it's fans, you name it. Like, just there seems to be this absolute displeasure when Al Bradbury's reffing a football game. Yeah. It's just like, oh crap, here we go.
Yeah,
it's just that feeling. You just know things are going to go down, and it's not going to be pretty. No. And the laundry is going to fly.
No,
and sure enough, it did.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I say it was just over after the third. I was at one point about to turn off the game. Check my socials. I'm not lying.
I think that was when Trevor Harris threw that pick 6 to Nick Marshall. I think that was that. I think that at that point you were ready to completely abandon ship.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, as a longtime season ticket holder, for me to do that, I'm done. I've rarely left a blowout, I think, at Personal Molson. Rarely. I remember the first game for Johnny Manziel. That game was horrible, and I still stayed.
Yeah.
But, just the thought of pushing that off button, so close. But I had a reason. I had a reason to watch. But still, again, Cliff, it's just so frustrating. Again, Trevor Harris. I don't want people to think that I'm hating on Trevor Harris. It sounds like I'm hating on Trevor Harris. But this Trevor Harris is not the same quarterback that ran ramshot all over the Alouettes in the Eastern semifinal in 2019. This is not the same quarterback.
So funny. 2019 was such a pivotal year for the Alouettes in so many ways.
I know.
And it seemed to be very pivotal for Trevor Harris. And I wonder if we're all just still kind of trying to live in 2019. Like, Alouettes fans are trying to believe that this is still the Alouettes team with Kahari Jones as the head coach and Vernon Adams as the quarterback, as that team. And Danny Maciocia is thinking that he signed the Trevor Harris of 2019 that carved up the Alouettes in that Eastern semifinal. Are we all just living in the past, quite frankly? Is that really what it's come down to? And, we just can't see the fact that, no, it's not that team. And Trevor Harris is not that quarterback.
No.
And here's what blew my mind, though, is that I've been labeled as a hater of his for weeks now, despite doing everything I can to prove that I'm not. But I guess, just any sort of criticism makes you a hater. But I was seeing a lot of people like, oh, maybe Trevor Harris isn't the answer. Oh, Trevor Harris does not look very good. Oh, Trevor Harris, he looked as bad as what we think Vernon Adams looked like.
And the funny thing is, when Vernon came in late in the fourth quarter, yes, we understand it. Everybody would call it garbage time. Vernon looked good. But obviously, it's like, who was out there? Was it still partially the ones? Was it the twos? I don't know. Did that signal potentially the change? Because Trevor, again, 18 to 26, 198 yards, 2 interceptions. One was a pick 6.
know, it's funny. Vernon Adams didn't throw a pick six this year.
Nope.
But, he was struggling this year, quote unquote.
And running game, I think it did quite well. We still don't know the status, by the way, of Jeshua Antwi, who got just rocked in the fourth. Mm-hmm. But Walter Fletcher did a pretty good job in relief.
Yeah, shout out to him. He got his first touchdown as an Alouette.
Yep.
So we're very happy about that.
Yep.
And again, I think that was Trevor Harris's contribution to the offense, was handing the ball off to Fletcher to get into the end zone. So props, I guess. Kudos. Hero cookie.
Yeah. Gino, I think, wasn't the Gino at all, but he wasn't being targeted early on. I mean, he only had 3 receptions on 8 targets for 30 yards. Reggie White, sure, he had 3 catches, but only 11 yards. Philpott got in there too. I'm curious to know what happened to the play calling. Where was the play calling from the first game in Montreal?
Yeah, Hergy Mayala too. He had a drop, unfortunately, that just looks so uncharacteristic because
I know, not a receiving touchdown this game, not one.
No,
not a one, and no player got got more than 30 yards. Gino topped it out at 30.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, but like you can call us Trevor Harris haters if you want, but it's undeniable. Just he did not look like a starting quarterback. He looked like someone thrown in there with no preparation and a limited skill set. And this is what we're trying to explain to you folks, is that we don't hate the guy, but at the same time, we don't think he's the answer. Yes, Vernon Adams is a gunslinger. He makes mistakes. He is very much a risk-reward player. But that's why you have him in there, because when the reward's there, it works. Trevor Harris is who he is. And I'm sorry to say, but he is very much a middle-of-the-pack kind of guy.
Right.
Like, he is not an elite quarterback by any stretch. He is not Ricky Ray. He's not Bo Levi Mitchell. He's not Michael Riley. He's not any of those guys, I'm sorry to say. And this thought, this prevailing wisdom that he is the guy, that he is the savior, and that, the Alouettes should trade Vernon Adams because, that's who you're going to, hitch up your horse to. No, I'm sorry. There was nothing in that game against Saskatchewan that suggested that he should be a starting quarterback or is capable of leading this team to the glory that it needs to be led to.
It's funny to say, does this team hitch its ride to a 30? It's funny to say, at our current ages, and, but 36 in football as a quarterback, Tom Brady notwithstanding, Damon Allen notwithstanding, AC notwithstanding, sometimes you do sometimes slow down. But the question is, how will a change? Who's going to potentially get the start for this first game with Maciocia? And how does the playbook change? Because these playbooks, as far as we know, were all done by Kahari. Yes, it's tough bringing in a quarterback, and starting. Did it with Johnny Football was brought in and pushed way too quickly to come in, and I'm sorry, pushed. That's the word that I'm using because that's how I feel.
Yeah, he was greener than the grass that his ass was knocked down on.
You can't. Yes, sometimes you need a change. I am hoping that all of our quarterbacks get a fair chance to start, at least the ones on the active roster.
I mean, I think a lot of the talking heads, they've surmised that Trevor Harris is Danny Maciocia's guy. That's who he envisions as the quarterback of the Montreal Alouettes. But this performance against Saskatchewan, there's nothing there that suggests that, okay, just based on what he turned in as a performance, there is nothing there that says, oh, yeah, that's my guy. That's the one. I feel very confident in what he did for him to start the next game.
Drive is stalled again. That's the problem, and that's been the consistency, unfortunately, since Trevor has started.
And like the criticisms that were hurled at Vernon for the first couple of games, now we have no choice but to hurl them at Trevor. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So now, are we going to be clamoring for Vernon Adams to get his starting position back? Should he be given his starting position back? And if he does, and God forbid if he starts to falter, then what? Then is there going to be a panic to go back to Trevor Harris? And hope and pray that this was just an anomaly, when in reality his resume as a Montreal Alouette shows like this is what you can expect out of Trevor Harris.
Yeah,
he can pad his stats, he can make some moves, but ultimately he's not the finisher. And it was to the point where Pierre Vercheval during the RDS broadcast was talking about using both quarterbacks the same way that Zach Collaros and Chris Streveler were used in 2019 when they won the Grey Cup.
Yes. Make it
Trevor
change.
Harris.
Make it change when you're in the red zone. Make it change. Because yes, you think, oh, yes, they're going to run Vernon. We know what Vernon can do. Something has to be done to improve this offense. Point blank. Because the offense has been inept. Yes, we scored as many points as we did 2 weeks ago. But again, one was a defensive touchdown. One was on kickoff. 5 field goals.
Yeah.
So.
And again, you can't expect your defense and your special teams to put up the lion's share of the points and win every single game. It is just no. You can't do that.
The script was completely flipped, and that's exactly what Saskatchewan did. They pulled in us. They did in us.
They learned how to do it. we gave them the blueprint. Like, they were embarrassed. You could tell. Like, and they had their litany of excuses, and fine, they may well have been very valid. At the end of the day, they made great adjustments in the second half. The Montreal Alouettes did nothing.
Third quarter killed them. When you only have, again, had the ball for 4 minutes in a quarter, and you do nothing.
But you know what? The Riders got the running game going.
That's true. They did. Wow.
Did they ever? Because Fajardo still was not looking all that great. He took a couple shots at his knee, which had been, again, he was a target. Like, his knee was a target. People knew he had that knee brace on, go after the knee. So he switched things up. The entire offense switched up. They hit the ground running, and they just kept on going. And Montreal had no answer. They could not adjust.
Jamal Morrow, dude, 103 yards, 6.4 average. Frankie Hickson, 57 yards, 8.1 average. Dude.
I mean, where were these guys last year for Saskatchewan? Who cares? They're here now, and they're using these guys to their advantage. And fine, we don't have William Stanbeck right now, and we won't get him back probably to the end of the year if we're lucky. Yeah, but you know what? You've got Jeshwin Antwi. You've got Walter Fletcher. These guys are very solid runners too. You got to find a way to incorporate these guys just a little bit better because, quite frankly, they couldn't get anything going. No. And again, if your quarterback can't make those throws, he's not connecting with his receivers, you go to the ground game. You make the adjustments. Like this offensive line.
Trevor's consistent. I will give him that. But if he's been consistent at stalling in the red zone.
And that's what he's done. When he was with Ottawa, he would do that. Like, we had Red Blacks fans telling us, this is classic Trevor Harris. You should know this. Like, this is the Trevor Harris that you're going to get. Is he'll get you to the red zone, but ultimately you're kicking field goals, not scoring touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like I said, he can pad his stats. He can make things look good, and so he ends up with some pretty decent numbers. But at the end of the day, you're settling for field goals instead of touchdowns, or you're not even scoring any. Like, if you're not getting points on the board, stats don't mean a damn thing. No, quite frankly.
No, they don't. Again, and penalties too, they got to be corrected. We'll see what happens going forward. You can't have a one-off, one-on type of thing because it's getting ridiculous. I mean, yes, one positive for the penalties is one extended a drive where it was, I think, was he picked? Was Harris picked, or was it was over on 3 downs? I'm trying to remember what it was, but it extended an Alouettes drive. But still, it's got to stop. And we know that's one of the things last year that Kahari was getting really blasted for. We'll see if there's a change.
There has to be. I mean, if that truly was what signed Kahari's dismissal note, was the lack of discipline, then you better make sure your guys are disciplined now going forward, because now it's going to be on you. You can't blame Kahari for what happens going forward because he's not around anymore. You can't.
Exactly. So, moving on, though, Cliff, there was some interesting stuff that happened post-game, wasn't there?
Yeah, actually, Sunday morning, as we're getting ready to go about our day and everything like that, the Alouettes decide they want to drop a little teaser, if you will, involving a trade with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, what now? Because going into the bye week, and I was already of the impression, okay, Kahari's time, unfortunately, is over. It's really just going to be a matter of when. Watch it be Tuesday that they end up firing him. That was my thought. And then when they announced a trade, like, oh dear, what now? Like, and of course, everybody's thoughts is Vernon.
It's getting rid of
Vernon. If you didn't catch it,
possible troll on the on the GIF that was used by the Alouettes.
Yeah, they had the Alouettes from their account, tagged the Saskatchewan Roughriders with I think it was a GIF of Daffy Duck knocking on a door.
Yeah,
as though to try to get their attention, to make this trade. I guess that was the idea they're trying to come across. But if you look at that GIF, the door that Daffy Duck is knocking on has the number 3 on it. Who wears number 3 for the Alouettes? So of course people, are always going to be calm and rational in instances like this. And they're like, oh my God, they're trading Vernon Adams to the Rough Riders. Like, slow your roll, people. You know that Vernon Adams makes like CFL starter money, which is like $500K plus per year.
Yeah.
You got Cody Fajardo, who I believe makes about the same, give or take.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
Do you really think what scenario can you afford to pay both quarterbacks $500,000 each?
Yeah, I know.
You realize that the salary cap, that would be 1/5 of your salary cap.
Yeah,
for an entire football team.
Yeah.
Like I get it, folks. I understand. Y'all think that
they're hitting a TSN for a loan.
Oof. I know you think that Danny Mac wants to get rid of Vernon. Maybe he does. I don't know. I really don't believe so. I really hope not. But do you really, really, truly think this? Like, just logically, think logically. That's all I'm asking is think logically. But again, I can see where some people would think there's a hidden message with that number 3 there. But no, when it was all said and done, it wasn't number 3 that ended up being traded to the Rough Riders. It was number 2, as in Mario Alford.
Yeah. The
returner, who is back, is healthy, was practicing. However, effectively lost his job to Chandler Worthy.
Yeah.
That's really what it came down to, folks. I mean,
we go from
Chandler Worthy, not 1, not 2. Well, I guess technically 2, because the third house call that he made just was called back to a penalty. But I mean, you saw what was going on with Chandler Worthy.
Yeah.
You see exactly what the dynamic. When it comes to special teams now for the Alouettes, this is someone that you have no choice but to prepare for. And if you can try to find some way to kick away from this guy, you best do it, because if he's proven it, at least against Saskatchewan, if nothing else, if he gets the ball in his hands, he's heading to the end zone. Yep. You better hope you catch him.
So we go from Super Mario to we're not worthy.
We're not worthy. We're truly not worthy of this guy.
The Alouettes in return receive a conditional 6th-round pick. If Alfred plays 9 games with the Rough Riders this year, that selection will become a 5th-round pick. By the way, what I think is funny, by the way, and correct me if I'm wrong, but both of our current returners, weren't they both released by the Toronto Argonauts?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, both Alfred and Worthy are former Argos.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting how that works, and
I know. And then we also find out, which broke, then all of a sudden, out of a huge surprise, that Trey Watson was released. And
yes,
the story was that there was an altercation or a dust-up between, this is how it was put originally, between, it actually said, the actual story, I think, said two, I thought it said it was a coach and a player.
Correct.
Originally. And then, based on the news that we got from the story today from Herb Zurkowski, we did find out what it was. It was a sideline incident that involved Marc-Antoine Decoy and special teams coordinator Byron Archambault.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you wonder, and you were able to see Trey's story because he spoke a 3 down, and he told his story. And it really makes you wonder. I think my first question is, are the Owls going to regret this?
Well, I guess time will tell on that one.
Was it that bad? Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you, but was it that bad?
Well, whether or not it was that bad or not is irrelevant, because when you take a look at who's Trey Watson versus who's Marc-Antoine Decoy and Byron Archambault, I mean, these are former Carabins who are now Alouettes, and you've got an American who, I'm sorry to say, are considered a dime a dozen in the Canadian Football League. Who do you think wins that battle? And it's unfortunate because Trey Watson, very good football player, was the starting middle linebacker for the Alouettes this year. He's proven himself to be a very capable player. So to let go of someone like that, like you can't be having dust-ups, if you want to call it that, or incidents with your defensive players like that. And yeah, it was really interesting, especially too since Trey's father is also on Twitter, and he had chimed in on his 2 cents, I think kind of speaking on his son's behalf, because Trey Watson, to his credit, did not want to name any names. He didn't want to say it. He just said, this was the situation, and I'm taking the high road. And he was even very gracious in saying, letting the Alouettes fans know that he appreciates the support that he got, and he really did enjoy his time in Montreal, but, it was time to move on. Trey's father, on the other hand, he was very vocal about the fact that he felt that a lot of Alouettes players that were coached by the general manager back in the day were getting preferential treatment, which would essentially be Decoy and Archambault.
And by the way, to be clear, again, Cliff isn't saying this. This is what was said.
Right. I'm paraphrasing.
I know. I'm just making sure that people understand that, so people don't get in a huff. That Cliff has said this. Cliff didn't say this.
No, I'm just, as I said, I'm paraphrasing what Trey Watson's father stated, and should he be saying this? I guess that's a decision that he chose to make. And as I said, Trey Watson, to his credit, is taking the high road. He wasn't naming names. He just said this is what had happened, and this is why I'm no longer an Alouette. And it is what it is. I mean, like I said, I can see some of the parallels that Trey Watson's father is talking about. Whether I agree with it or not, again, I'm not on the field. I'm not on the sidelines. So that is something that has to be handled internally, and really truly is between Watson and whoever he was involved with these altercations. At the end of the day, though, if it truly was Decoy and Archambault, again, former Carabin, coached by Danny Maciocia, they're going to stay, and the American is going to go. And that's really what it came down to, unfortunately. Obviously, Watson landed on his feet. He's now a member of the Elks, so expect to see him back in Montreal next week to take on his former team. So that, again, not a trade. Like, it literally was Chris Jones deciding, hey, he's a pretty good guy. I should sign him. So that's exactly what happened. Like, no surprise. I mean, Trey Watson, as I said, is a great player that would have had no trouble. I knew he was going to land on his feet no matter what. Not surprised at all. He goes to Edmonton. I mean, that's the kind of player that Chris Jones likes, is one of those hard-nosed defensive types that will, get in there, and he's clearly not afraid to mix things up. I mean, if he's willing to get into altercations and whatnot. But, so, again, just one of those interesting wrinkles, and really unfortunate because, as I stated earlier, Trey is a hell of a football player. Wish him all the best. He definitely, I think, could have been a key contributor to this team, and he was doing very well in the 4 games that he played this season, starting no less. But this is what happens with football. Sometimes things don't work, and you just got to move on.
Yeah. Also, we learned that Darius Williams was one of the few people I think got fined this week by the CFL for a quote-unquote high hit on the Riders running back Jamal Morrow.
How do we know that Morrow didn't just jump up into Darius's, grill or something like that? Like, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, sometimes,
dude, after seeing how I felt that the refs and the command center kind of botched that touchdown in the Toronto game to Speedy B.
Oh boy, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's.
I think it's time to. I think the command center needs a review of their own, quite frankly.
Yeah, but not find them. I think it's a fine time. I think it's fine time that the fans find them.
100%. So it's unfortunate. Darius, friend of the show. He's I'm sure he didn't mean to hit that guy, and he didn't mean to get caught. So I mean, it's football, So.
Exactly. And lastly was finding out today, even though we did lose somebody, Trey Watson, the Alouettes picked up somebody today. It hasn't been announced officially by the Alouettes or by the league, but it was broken by Dave Naylor. The Alouettes may have picked up somebody to replace him.
Mm-hmm. That would be Micah formerly of the Ottawa Red Blacks. He's obviously good. I believe that's going to be the replacement now for Trey Watson. He is essentially a middle linebacker. Very active on social media. He's definitely a player that a lot of people know what he can bring to the table. Actually, I forgot he was with the BC Lions as well and played outstanding football for them, if I recall. Now has a chance to reinvent himself, and I think would fit very nicely in a Noel Thorpe defense. Mm-hmm. God, it's kind of weird to say that again after. I mean, we see what Noel Thorpe can do defensively as a coach, and now we're going to get to see it again. So I think Micah Ogg would be one of those players that I think will fit very well. And I can't believe I'm saying this, in a Noel Thorpe defense. So now I thought initially that with the release of Watson, like this was going to mean that. Now you're finding a way to keep when Chris Aki returns, get him on the field as well as with Brian Herlemana, who has been outstanding.
Yes, he has. Yes,
like I'm sure Cody Fajardo has post-traumatic stress disorder, thinking okay, this son of a bitch is hiding it in the closet. He's hiding close to getting him.
Yeah, he came close to getting him a few more times too.
He did actually at one point. He managed to tackle Fajardo again. Like I said, Brian Harlemarla is living rent free in Cody Fajardo's head. I'm sure Fajardo's like, thank God we are not playing the Alouettes again this year, because that guy, get this guy away from me.
Yeah.
So all this to say, okay, you got Chris Aki, you've got Brian Harlemana, who are both outstanding football players, as we've seen. We got to get those guys on the field as much as possible. And then you got Tyrell Richards, also a linebacker.
You got dinged up a little bit in Saskatchewan, but I mean, so we'll see what's going on there.
But my point is, you've got three national players that belong in the conversation, have proven themselves worthy of being in the conversation. Problem is, with the ratio, can't always get everybody on, because if one of those guys goes down to injury, the other one has to step in. So you can't really have them out on the field. So I mean, this is where you have to have an American on the team. Micah fits that very much, and we are glad to have him on, because I think if given the right opportunity, he can make a lot of noise. He can make this make this defense, really something special again.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a Noel Thorpe defense. I can't believe I'm saying this again. It's a Noel Thorpe defense.
I know. I'm waiting for you to say it next week.
Again, this is to me, this is what's really incredible more than anything else. I mean, listen. I mean, I know that he's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but the guy produces. The guy gets results. I mean, so in that sense, I'm happy. I figured it would also too just be a matter of time before he ended up on the team in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Again, we remember back in the day, like back in 2002, he won with the Alouettes a Grey Cup as special teams coordinator. So before Jeff Reinebold was hired, I thought, do we bring back a Noel Thorpe? Because if only for the connection of a former Carabao coach under Danny Maciocia, is this how we bring Noel Thorpe back into the mix? No, turns out we're going to hire him as defensive coordinator again. Okay, well, listen, he did produce some pretty outstanding football. The defense, I remember in 2014, was next level.
Yep.
So if Noel Thorpe can get this defense, which I already think is a very, very, very good defense, if he can keep that going, and if anything, improve upon it, then that's just great. This is something that Alouettes fans should be very, very excited about. He's going to work his players hard. There's no question about that. He does not suffer fools. But more often than not, he produces results. And that's what I'm looking forward to more than anything else.
Yeah. Stay tuned, obviously, for anything that may break on social media, as we're going to try to keep everybody up to date on anything that might change leading up to, I guess, the first practice, which I would imagine would be sometime this weekend. It would have to be, actually, considering when the game is on a Thursday. So I would probably expect the first practice to be on Sunday. But stay tuned as we go forward. Again, it's just going forward to our next opponent and just try to right the ship. And we'll be here for every step, every beat, every touchdown, whether they are from the red zone or whether they are not.
Like it or not, folks, it's once again a new era for Montreal Alouettes football.
It's too soon, man. It's ridiculous.
It is what it is. So let's just buckle up and enjoy the ride as best we can.
Somebody just DM me. Please, come at me. I would love it. You can help me ease the pain. Anyways, we appreciate everybody joining us, listening to us talk about the Alouettes. Again, we will be back next week. Few ideas. We got
football tickets to give away.
Yeah, and we got football tickets to give away. So make sure that once that is live, that you, dude. One thing we're hoping, by the way, plus, not only for football, potentially, Putin in a helmet. Ooh. That's all I can say. Putin in a helmet.
And unfortunately, our campaign to try and get to be the official taste testers of said Putin kind of fell on deaf ears.
Mario!
Or at least Mario is, cute enough to try and reply with a snarky comment, which I appreciate.
We appreciate that.
I appreciate the gamesmanship. So, okay, but hey, listen, offer still stands. Tim and I are more than willing to be the taste testers for this Putin in a helmet.
Especially if it serves how much Putin, as I've been told it does.
Well, there you go. So, that.
Can't wait. We appreciate it.
So, folks, if you don't have your tickets for the game next Thursday, folks, against the Elks, get on it, folks. Otherwise, enter the contest, talk to us on social media, throw your hat in the ring, if you will. Who knows? You could be going to see the Alouettes and the Elks, a new era of football, possibly puts it in a helmet. Live.
And the 20th anniversary of the 2002 Grey Cup champions.
There you go. What more reasons do you need, folks? So enter the contest, win those flight crew seats, go see the game next Thursday. Who knows? It could be one to remember. Hopefully for all the right reasons.
Football! Thanks everybody for joining us on the flight deck. For Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. Run Final Approach.